All right. Today, joining us, we have the inimitable Bryan Hasling with JW Harrison Financial Advisors. Bryan, thanks again for joining us today. How are you?
Good. How you doing, Max?
Good, man. Nice to talk to you again. And you've been putting together some really incredible resources regarding the SBA loans that are going out to all the small businesses in America, ideally, or in theory. But today, I think you wanted to deliver a little bit more of a real world sort of overview in terms of what sort of steps and eligibility criteria people have to clear in order to access this capital that's being talked about in all the headlines right now. So with that, go ahead and give us the quick overview of what we can expect to hear today.
Cool. Yeah. So the most important thing to note is that there's a date on this page for a reason. April 8th is because this is what we basically know up until today or this morning. That's important because these rules and the relief programs, the rules and guidelines are being updated basically every single day. So maybe even by the time we're done recording this, maybe there's already some new regulations out there. So that's important.
Fair enough.
So what's happened? Let's back up to a week and a half ago. A week and a half ago, on March 27th, Congress enacted the CARES Act. CARES is an acronym. And with the CARES Act, they basically created relief for individuals, for businesses, for students. There's trillions of dollars being thrown out in relief for people. We're going to focus on the business, some of actually just the main primary business relief program that's out there right now, called the Paycheck Protection Program. I say that because there's actually a few benefits out there for business. There's some tax credits, there's some emergency loans. The Paycheck Protection Program is the most significant program. It's the one that potentially might give the most aid to small businesses. In short, we'll just jump right in. In short, the Paycheck Protection Program is set to give small businesses $349 billion. Allegedly, that's how much has been earmarked from Congress for this right now. I don't know how quickly this is going to fill up. There's actually talks of it might, if it fills up too soon, maybe they'll actually give more relief. But in the end, at least today, there's a lot of money for small business owners. Small business, what does that mean? In this context, small business means any business at all. So on one end, you've got basically, call it somebody who runs a factory and they have hundreds of employees. That's a business, obviously. Then again, if you are an Uber driver and you make 1099 income and maybe you're just making pocket money, that's also your own business. So it's kind of like, if you're familiar with tax terms, it's Schedule C income. If you get a 1099 in the mail from doing your Uber driving or Instacart delivering, whatever, that's a business. You're a business owner. That's important to say because if you are a business owner and you hire contractors, that doesn't really count as one of your employees.
Okay.
Because the contractors themselves are allowed to apply on their own. So that might come up later. Another important distinction, small business, you had to have had been in business before February 15th. You can't make a brand new business tomorrow and then apply for some aid. You can't do it. So that's the high level. How much aid actually is there available to you? What the government is trying to do is they're trying to give people enough money to basically float them for a couple of months. There's a little squiggly in front of 2 because the calculation is actually like 250% of monthly payroll expenses is what you're qualified for. But the aid is effectively supposed to help business owners effectively survive and, most importantly, keep their employees on payroll for a couple months is really what they're trying to do. So you're going to go and you're going to apply for aid. Well, what are the expenses that you're actually tallying up to try and get 2 months of? It's 2 months of basically payroll, which is like salary and a couple other benefits, and also your own rents and also your utilities. Payroll is the most important thing because Congress wants you to basically just not let people go. They want you to keep paying your employees. That's the most important thing that they care about right now. So the payroll definition is the most important thing to know. So payroll, what does that mean? You have a bunch of employees or you're the only employee. To actually come up with the calculation, everybody is capped at $100,000 per employee. Also, if you're doing like employer matching to that person's 401k, that counts. They want you to keep doing that. Also, if you're offsetting some costs for that person for your employee's healthcare, that counts too. Those last two are more important if you have a lot of employees and you're just trying to keep things the same. Based.
All three of those categories are subject to the $100,000 limit.
Good question. No, just the salary part is the 100,000 cap, and then you add on, and the payroll expenses part that's capped at $100,000, and then you get to add on your rent and utilities. I'll go through an example here in a little bit. So let's go through how the math might work at a high level. So first, you need to calculate your monthly expenses. This is how you do the calculation at a high level. You start with you find the monthly number. So what did you make? What did you pay in salary last year to people? All right, there's your annual number. You can also add in rent and utilities. There's your annual number. Divide that number by 12 to get the monthly number. Multiply by 2.5, which is that 250% I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the amount of aid that you'll qualify for. So let's actually do a real example. The easiest way to think about this actually is just imagine if you are a solo practitioner, which a lot of people are. Maybe you're a tax preparer or something. You are honestly just a sole prop business and you do pretty well, but you're the only employee. You're the only person who gets any of the income that the business gets. So you have one salary that you're trying to keep up with. So let's actually say, for example, that you actually made $200,000 in your tax prep business. That's how much you made. Well, for this purpose, all you're allowed to use is the $100,000 cap for what it is. So again, you're trying to calculate the monthly expenses. So you'll find the annual number. So you look at your annual income, you're capped at 100K. Let's say that for the year also your rent and utilities were $20,000. So my annual expenses, just to keep the lights on basically, was $120,000. If I divide it by 12, that's $10,000 is my monthly number to keep the lights on, times 2.5. And there's my number that I'm at least allowed to apply for aid. So $25,000 in this situation for this person. So how does this work? Functionally, you're supposed to get the money from the bank. Congress enacted this. They basically said, all right, we want all these businesses to be able to get 25,000, 5,000, whatever the number is. We just want to get the money out as soon as possible. Our country is in a crisis. So they think, well, how do we get the money out to people that quickly? What infrastructure is already in place? Oh, banks have been doing business with people across the country for forever. Let's utilize the banking system. So if you want money, even though this is through the government, you have to go through a bank. So either a bank or a credit union, any bank that gets on this platform, which might actually end up being basically every bank because they stand to make some money too. You have to apply through a bank. You go through underwriting processes. You have to prove all those expenses that we just did the math for. You have to actually show them maybe some of your payroll, do some downloads of last year's payroll just to prove that you're applying for real numbers. They're a bank. They're going to do underwriting. It's risk management 101. So you apply for the loan through them. Over 8 weeks or so, it's kind of like the probationary period. You've got about 8 weeks, and they're going to say, hey, did you use that money for what you told us you were going to use it for? Did you make sure you kept everybody on payroll? Are you holding up your part of the deal? If so, the SBA will forgive the loan. Basically, that's what it is. So it's aid, but it comes in the form of a loan from the bank. It's just forgivable. So it's more like a grant. It's more like just financial aid that they just gave you. So forgivable loan is kind of a tricky phrase, but you have to think of it as a grant. This is just the tool and infrastructure that they're using to get it to the people. For it to be forgivable, there's some huge stipulations here. Number one, on the right side here, I said the 8 weeks thing. So you have to be able to like prove. You can't just ask for the money and then run off with it and then not do what you said you were going to do. Also, remember there was a few things that you asked for the money for: payroll, rent, utilities. There's a couple other things on the list. Actually, over 75% of the money that you get has to go to the payroll part, meaning you definitely have to make sure that you're paying your employees. That's all they care about. All they care about is not letting people go. If they lose their job, they're going to apply for unemployment benefits and they're going to suck up from that system. So they're just trying to make sure that you're keeping your people on payroll. If you don't meet these criteria, there's a couple other things, but if you don't hit these main things and the loan happens to not be forgivable, what happens? Well, it actually just starts to take the shape of a traditional loan. And the terms are actually pretty good too, meaning like the worst case scenario is actually not that bad. If you ended up not getting any of it forgiven, if you did take the money, you're like, you know what, my people, I let them go anyways. The money that you got from your bank, it takes the shape of a traditional loan where the terms are 1% APR, I believe, and I think it's a 2-year payback. And I think you actually have 6 months of deferral before you even have to make your first payment. Wow. So even the worst case scenario actually isn't that bad for these loans. Obviously, you want it to be forgiven though, and it is tax-free whenever they do forgive it, which is a big question I think for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So this, the other thing that makes it really important, why did you apply in the first place? You applied because you had economic uncertainty, basically, which is a super broad term that basically everybody qualifies for.
Right, yeah.
Which we'll get to that later, the ethical dilemma. But let's say that you thought you're like, you know what, all these things, sounds like me, I could use the money. I really got to keep my employees, or I really want to keep my lights on for 2 months. Great, let's apply. Well, how do I do it? Again, you have to go through a bank. Well, most of the banks right now, actually the doors have really only been open since last Friday, I believe, at least on paper. And most of the banks aren't even ready to begin accepting applications. And the ones that are ready to begin accepting applications are putting a priority on their current clients, or their current business clients, actually.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, which is some huge piece of red tape for a lot of people, because at Chase, they are taking applications for existing business account owners. If you just had a regular checking account, that doesn't count. Bank of America, they're making it really hard to apply. They say that you actually, not only do you have to have a business account, but we want you to also have had a credit card or like a business loan of some sorts. Just the business checking account by itself doesn't count. Wells Fargo started accepting applications. They stopped on Sunday, which was less than 48 hours after they started accepting applications. Most of the major banks aren't even on the platform yet. So, I don't actually know what to tell a lot of people who do need to apply and they don't have a relationship yet. In theory, there's supposed to be a list of banks on the SBA's website that go to, and you can try and check for banks in your area that are on the platform. But the site isn't really up and functional yet. It's just too new. It's just way too new. So it's not really an option. So it's kind of the waiting game for a lot of people. If you thought that you were going to be, maybe late to the game because they opened up last Friday and you think the program's going to fill up, there's actually still plenty of time. Banks aren't really ready for this yet. So there's time. The program's technically up open until June 30th. So if you have a banking relationship with any of those people, maybe Chase or Chase and Bank of America are the only people that I really know. Otherwise, it's kind of like maybe you know your banker and you guys are friends and they can help you out, but it's kind of been a relationship priority right now.
Right. And I have to imagine some businesses out there certainly are not going to have the bandwidth or the luxury to really play that waiting game. So in that instance, I mean, I wonder, obviously we know I think that it was earmarked for about 350 billion for these programs. That's a finite number. And there are a lot of businesses in the United States of America. So is each bank subject to a certain threshold or excuse me, a certain maximum? Or are we looking at really just kind of an endless supply until that broad 350 is met? What is the dynamic there? What's the makeup as far as you know?
Yes, so as far as I know, the SBA, Small Business Administration, is saying that basically every bank or credit union is allowed to get on this platform. They're allowed to get in and start writing loans. So effectively what we're talking about is the entire banking system at large. They might have their own, call it cap tables that they've got to keep up with the Federal Reserve. But I just read a story like an hour ago saying that the Federal Reserve is going to allow Wells Fargo to expand theirs. So they're basically going to let banks do whatever they can to be able to get money out to the people. Like we said, there's $349 billion of aid potentially available. I think it's going to get filled up relatively soon.
Yeah.
If I'm really about it right. And my best guess is that if it gets filled up too soon and there's a lot of people who are actually needing help and they didn't have the relationships to get in first, I bet they might open up the gates a little bit further, but that's just kind of hearsay.
And I think you may have mentioned this, but what are they determining as a small business? How many employees? It's a valid question, or especially around thinking about the cap number and how much people can access. Because if you've got a company of 2,500 employees as a small business, and they're paying a C-suite of I don't know 50 people, millions of dollars. I mean, obviously you're subject to that $100,000 limit, but say there's a broad swath of employees that are going to hit that threshold. Now you've got maybe $1 billion going to one company. So how does that work with everything that's going on?
Yeah, so the first rules were technically you had to be an SBA. It had to be a traditional SBA loan, meaning you have to qualify for small business loans in general from the SBA. You have to have less than 500 employees. That was the first definition. They have since gone in and said that definition no longer applies. So they're effectively opening the floodgates for kind of everybody at this point until they like put more language in there. I think that your 2,500 employees thing I think they qualify too. The thing is, if you have a business where you have that many employees, a lot of them might not actually make that much money. You might pay them, $5,000 and $10,000 a year. For the smaller employees, there might be some other relief programs that might be better suited. There's a couple. What's the one called? There's a couple of tax credits basically that you might want to choose to utilize over money from the SBA. There's a few things for you. The point is, like, you can kind of tell that they're trying to make sure that everybody is kind of spoken for here. The big dogs all the way to the little ones.
Gotcha.
To your question about who qualifies, it looks like the big of the big counts, but it also looks like really small, just pocket money type of businesses count too.
So then for those sole proprietors who are just getting a 1099 from maybe a couple different clients or something like that, do they have the same access? I saw that note about the 75% going to salary as one of the hurdles that you have to clear in order to get the forgivable status.
Yep.
I mean, you could conceivably pay yourself 100% of that amount. Is that considered unethical or outside the guidelines in any respect?
That's how you actually probably should do it. If you're a sole proprietor that you don't even have a business entity, you don't have an S corp, you don't have any way to even pay yourself true salary, you just kind of take basically net income of the business. You know, I make some 1099 income, I
Right.
pay some expenses, and whatever's left over, like that's my salary. That counts
Okay.
in the majority of America, in my guess.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of people looking for that sort of relief, I think. Well, that's great. I mean, those are the only questions I wanted to ask, just sort of a follow up to your presentation. I thought that was very thorough, super helpful for a lot of people. And again, of course, this is all subject to change based on the date and how the rules all roll out. But I think people really need to know, number one, that what you're reading in the headlines is going to look a little bit different than what you're seeing going to your bank, perhaps.
Yeah.
Really trying to identify which bank to ask. I mean, this should narrow it down for a lot of people, and things like that. So I really appreciate the practical information. We got to spread this message far and wide quickly.
Yeah, I think, for a lot of our clients, I'm a financial planner. We have over 100 households that we work with. A lot of them are business owners. Honestly, for a lot of the people that we work with, it becomes they've done well in their businesses and, they're working with us. They've got plenty of excess cash. They've got a nice runway, emergency funds, savings, all that stuff. So for them, it actually becomes more of a moral dilemma than anything. It's, should I apply knowing that I actually probably could get a meaningful amount of money when I know that there are small businesses who are really hurting, and I think that they should have priority over me. And then the risk with that is if they let other people go ahead and the program does fill up, they sign away all $349 billion and the program is dried up, they risk not actually getting any money at all. Yeah, maybe Congress could write in some more money, but we don't know if that's actually going to happen. So you risk foregoing meaningful money. But if your business is doing fine and maybe you're only getting hit a little bit, you're kind of at this moral dilemma. The rules are really, really vague, and there's going to be a lot of fraud in the system. People are going to be taking money that they probably don't need or should have at all. And so for you and any clients you're working with, it's kind of a moral decision. And then once they decide that they actually need money, well, then it just becomes, well, what bank can I use to help me out? So there's a few hurdles out there for sure.
Yeah, that game theory aspect is really interesting. I suspect most people are going to go for the bank. but I think it is an interesting question and certainly valuable in the context of how we're servicing our clients. So again, really appreciate your insight on this. What's the best way for people to find more information if they wanted to look up the slides, if they're listening to this via audio, or other materials that you've prepared, which have been so helpful for me just wrapping my head around this?
Yeah, our firm, we prepared just a 2-page PDF with basically this information on the slides, but also a little bit more details in there, nice and packaged up. I sent it to you. It would be nice if you sent it out to everybody. We're sending it out to basically any small business that we know, our favorite local restaurants that we know here in our downtown area. We're sending it to them. I sent it to my favorite brewery in town. These are all small businesses. They're actually hurting. So by all means, we'll make sure that you have the PDF to send to everybody. The rules are always changing, so who knows if it's still going to be accurate by the time you get it. But by all means, use that, and you can follow me. I'm sending a lot of updates on my LinkedIn page, so Bryan Hasling on LinkedIn, maybe Twitter too. We're sharing as much as we can.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Bryan. Appreciate your help and your work on this. All right.